Jersey City Mayor Steven Fulop, Public Safety Director James Shea, and various other city officials gathered in Lincoln Park last night to talk about a multitude of issues largely centered around crime in the city. Hosted at a jam-packed Hank Gallo Center, Fulop kicked off the event by noting that there is a discrepancy between what is actually happening and how people feel in a community, further stating that he and the city directors plan on hosting a forum in each ward in the next month. After a crime data breakdown packet was passed out for the audience, Shea answered a question about how the police department classifies shootings.
Shootings, you'll see three numbers. You'll see non-fatal, fatal, and then victims. Each one, a non-fatal and a fatal means somebody pulled the trigger and hit somebody, struck somebody and injured them. And then the total victims, because sometimes they shoot two people instead of one. So the victims could be higher than the incidents. Shootings, especially in Jersey City, tend not to trend with the other crimes because they tend to occur for the most part among a certain small group of people that are shooting back and forth at each other. So it's not like they're happening, for the most part, during robberies or during domestic incidents, though we have some of those too, where they would track like assaults and domestic incidents. Our shootings here in Jersey City tend to be among people arguing over corners, or small-time drug things, or gangs, or whatever they're arguing about, and tend not to follow.
Fulop seemed to be intrigued when Camille Tayari, a former deputy mayor, asked if crime statistics could distinguish between gang activity, gun trafficking, and drug trafficking.
So I will give you an example, specific example, without giving an individual's name, so you understand kind of some of the challenges that we're dealing with. One of the individuals who was shot in the back and forth during that time between October and November, if you look at his rap sheet, he had 7 previous gun charges, meaning that the Jersey City Police Department has arrested this individual 7 previous times for carrying a gun. Now, I know that when the newspapers come out, or when they're shooting back and forth on this sort of thing, ultimately we are to blame, and people say it's the police department ultimately to blame. However, and we have had this conversation, and I'll tell you what we're doing to change it, but we've had this conversation with the prosecutors and the court system, because that day the conversation was, at what point does the person not get out again? And it's not something that is specific to Jersey City, this is a nationwide problem ultimately. So here's what we're seeing ultimately, okay? We are seeing that if there is shooting back and forth, okay, we will see on CCTV cameras that there are witnesses. We will see that. However, we will also see that none of those witnesses from the community want to participate for a variety of reasons why they don't want to come forward and say, yes, that was the individual shooting. That puts us in a very tough position. And you guys may not realize it, but it does. Because in society today, if you have a police officer accusing an individual, even out of gun charges, but no witnesses coming forward, it is very, very hard to get a jury conviction.
The mayor later stated that Hudson County Prosecutor Esther Suarez has been setting bail higher for violent offenders, making it more likely that they will spend their money on lawyers as opposed to bail. Towards the tail end of the meeting, responding to a local pastor who felt that the Jersey City Police Department is too focused on enforcement, Shea argued that wasn't the case.
We talked about 208 gun arrests last year. 208. That's 208 separate times the police took a gun from somebody out on the street. We all know there are large conversations going on about policing in America right now, everywhere. Chicago, Baltimore, New York, here, we're not exempt, everywhere else. Those 208 gun arrests, many of which involved resistance and pursuit, not one person hurt. It is a very restrained police department, the Jersey City Police Department. You cannot be prouder of the work that the men and women do out in the street. 1 second, sir, can I that they do every day. That's not an accident. It's impossible for that number to be done and for it to be an accident. Now, on the other side, we have 2 things that we're doing that are a lot of things, but I want to stress 2. We're involved in what's called Project Good Neighbor. We brought it under the mayor this year, working with the Attorney General. It is a direct attempt to reach out to people touched by violence in the community. Okay, so if there is a victim of shooting, or if a young man is arrested for a gun or a shooting, we have a social worker and a detective who reach out directly to them in a completely non-custodial setting. Nothing they say can be used against them, and they go to the family, visit them, the family and friends, and say, what can we do for you outside of the criminal justice system to help the other members of your family who may be traumatized by what happened to their family member or even by the arrest of a family member. And we just added a second one there. Now, we're not having a lot of success because you just mentioned, but you mentioned the trust deficit, which I think you're hitting on something that's just as important as the fear deficit as far as cooperating with the police is a trust deficit between the community and the police. We're not having a lot of success on our initial approach, but then people circle back to us. People come back and say, you know, I would like you to talk to my other son. I would like you to talk. So we're starting to build on that, which is why we just increased the staff over there and brought in someone to overrun it. Secondly, one of the major things we have to do is what the mayor mentioned at the beginning. The police department has to reflect Jersey City and be like Jersey City. So we have those two officers who are out there every day, two recruiters, recruiting people from Jersey City and staying with them through the whole process to become police officers.
Kevin Williamson, the city's new recreation director, also addressed concerns about preventive measures to keep children out of the streets. He explained that he plans on promoting all of his programs heavily through social media, welcomes community feedback, and wants to work with Superintendent of Schools Marcia Lyles to bring recreation programs to the schools earlier, preferably around 3 or 4 p.m. I'm John Heides with the Hudson County View, the eye of the community.